I think hip hop is in an interesting position when it comes to commercial rap. Commercial rap is the conversation today. I believe is broken in terms of the influence it once had. When it comes to the influence, where rappers were influential, where people used to say, okay, I'm listening to what the rappers say. I'm going to hear what they're saying based on how they dress, based on what they do, what they drive, what they think like. You know, music is influential in rap, but it's not where it used to be. And I'm talking particularly about US rap. In terms of the numbers as a whole, rap is selling. Rap is selling in the US market. Rap is selling in general. Rap has influence in certain instances. But my conversation is about the commercial rap. Now, some people's response is good commercial rap is not where it used to be because it's going back home to where it originally started, which is underground. But I think that is a coping mechanism to the fact that rap has always, especially when it became a thing, when it was starting to dominate many years ago in the late 80s and then obviously mainly in the 90s and all the way through the 2000s, it was dominating in terms of the influence, where rappers, as I said earlier, used to have that ability, that pull to evoke that influence that once had its hold mainly on young people. Now, that's not to say people aren't listening to hip hop, rap at a young age, right? In teenage years. But the point is, or teenage years as well as older years, right? But the point is, commercial rap used to dominate, used to have the influence. You can get to the summertime and know that there's going to be a summer banger, as it was called. You knew you can hear music, listen to music in different moments in life. You knew that this song was for the clubs. This song or these artists did songs that were more street related. This one was more, as they call it, backpack. This one was more conscious. Although maybe those terms were just loose terms just to try and give an identity to something, it was still clear that rap, when it came to the US rap, it had an influence, a major influence just in general, right? You could have even rap influencing older people. There were many moments in the years past where rap had a negative connotation, which we have to admit, it does have moments in that realm of being negative. But rappers of yesteryear who had the charisma, who had the presence, who had the songs that even older people can gravitate to and say, you know what, I may not like rap as a whole, but that song, or that artist does such and such. Whenever I hear it, it does something. Like I said, you had songs for moments. You had songs that were on the charts that you can reference and say, that's a club song. That's a song that generally is for the radio. You used to have hook-driven music, chorus-driven music. That was a major thing. So I think rap is broken in a sense of it's lost the care to create music for certain moments, to keep lyrics as important and to keep relatability at the forefront of what you're doing. That was the whole brand and marketing concept of how you sell. You want to be able to be like somebody, or, have something that person has in a way that you can say, I relate to that. Commercial rap, with the way, to me, on a general sense, how it sounds when it comes to US commercial rap, the general feel, there's no kind of general melodic staying power when it comes to its music, the composition, the lyrics. I think over the years, I used to hear stuff like this from different people, whether it's people who, have conversations about rap online, rap critics, whatever it was. It was this term of, you don't listen to lyrics in the club. You don't have lyrics in the club. Things like that, I think over the years, dumbed down rap. When certain eras or certain areas, in fact, took over, when East Coast and West Coast were starting to diminish in terms of its influence commercially, and certain avenues like the South came through, I think this vibe music, or it's a vibe. Ain't nobody want to hear lyrics in the club. It's just, sometimes you just want to have music to vibe to. I think that's when things diminished. That's not to say of yesteryear, the 90s, everything was perfect. No, it's to say that there were more music that had staying power, more influence from artists who cared about the craft, who cared to say, you know what, I'm going to rap and I'm going to spit in a certain way, irrespective if it's a club song, irrespective if it's a song that has commercial viability. We used to have these songs that had staying power on the charts, that caused the generation to have an identity of, these are the artists that are setting the pace, in order for rap to have that cultural influence. Now you may say it still has cultural influence because it's being used, or people are taking it in different genres, maybe K-pop. But if it's taken and other genres are now taking it and it's doing well for them, that doesn't necessarily do well for hip hop, because if the sales have diminished over the years in certain instances on the charts, like we saw with Billboard when they changed the criteria to actually enter the charts, you're seeing the effect of the diminishing aspects of when rappers used to really say, I'm spitting, I want to take your head off, I want to be the best on this track. If it's a feature, rappers were trying to say the best bars. People weren't just trying to quickly put things together and jump on a track with Nas and jump on a track with whoever, you name it. Nas featuring Big Pun, featuring Raekwon, whoever it was. The level of rapping, people wanted to say the best things and be intricate with it. Even in the clubs, they played Wu-Tang in the clubs. They had some of the most intricate bars. Atomically, Socrates, Velas. They played that in clubs. They played songs like LL Cool J in the clubs, because obviously he was a commercial viable artist for his sound, but they had songs of a certain level. You couldn't say LL Cool J in the 90s didn't have bars. You couldn't say Keith Murray and his music getting played in the clubs didn't have bars. You couldn't say Biggie didn't have bars. Park didn't have bars. So you've got to look at all of these things. KRS, I can keep going. There were artists that were played of a certain level who cared about the craft as an MC first, and then obviously they became rappers. When I mean rappers, I mean people who could be commercially viable, right, to make rap songs, and still cared about creating music that had some structure, relatability in the lyrics, and things that people can gravitate to in a natural way. And I think a lot of the time when we say, as I said earlier, about rap going back to its roots, underground, it's just a way to say, we don't need commercial anymore. No, it's a coping mechanism. Rap used to have care in the commercial sense. Now, there are rappers on the underground level, they're doing their thing. Still lyrically adept, that's fine. I'm talking specifically to rapping of the highest level in commercial rap. We know the main guys who are still considered rapping well, who are the named artists. We know some of them, right? But those are few and far between. They are carrying more or less the numbers in this industry when it comes to rap. But after that, the sound, the general sound over the years, what can you attribute the general sound to? You have some trap type beats over the years. You've had some rappers who have come and gone, or some rappers who have had their moment, but it hasn't been sustained like the named artists we know of. Your Drakes, you know the artists, right? And I'm saying rap commercially used to have that influence. I'm not hearing it no more. Not because of the fact that we have different moments in eras and we have different people listening to things differently. Early 2000s, we know who was dominating then. The 50 Cents, the Ja Rules, the Jay-Z's. In terms of sound, we know the melodies that we can reference today. Songs that will still get played and evoke a reaction. We know the Nellies. We know his music in 2002, 2001 can get played in 2026 and beyond. But those were the guys that were dominating commercially. We can even go further back. So we know the moments when rap still had influence in ways where the brand of rappers, the lyrics of rappers, and the moments that rappers rapped about different aspects of life, but had it in different ways where you can identify that. Like I said earlier, that's a club song. That's a song from a rapper that's maybe from, more of a street background, and he's referencing more street related stuff. Then you've got the backpack tie rappers. Then you've got the conscious rappers. Again, all terms loosely based just to give an identity. Not saying that those were the actual terms that identify these people, but you know what I mean? These were moments where people still said, you know what, I'm going to spit. And the guys that didn't, or the girls that didn't, they didn't last. The ones that weren't spitting, they did not last. But today there seems to be a lasting and staying power with artists today who lyrically, honestly, they're nowhere near the level that is considered an art form that has some form of standard to it, if you're honest. And this is where I think the drop-off has taken place, the lack of care. the vibe. It's only a vibe we want to hear. We don't want to hear lyrics in the clubs. That's a lie. We've always had lyrics in the clubs. We've had a Tribe Called Quest in the clubs. We've had The Roots in the clubs. If you're of a certain age, these were getting played on radio and in clubs. These were popular songs. They've had Bone Thugs and Harmony. They've had, I can keep going. Not that we've changed our listening habits, or it's not that we've got to a point where we don't want to hear things. It's just that we've allowed the years of the diminishing aspects of lyrics commercially to take place to a point where we're so dumbed down that we're just accepting the things we get. So if we get something that makes us feel that, oh, it's got some level to it, then we'll gravitate to it. But other than that, we just accept the vibe music that's here. And with that, you're killing the influence of hip hop. And maybe that's what's required. Maybe that's what's required. Kill the influence, and maybe it can evoke a whole new destroy and rebuild mentality where you're bringing more music that has more of a relatable basis when you're playing your music, when we're hearing it as people that listen to music from time to time. Even I've diminished my listening over the years. So it's only mainly for the artists, I would say, that you would listen to in that way. That's maybe up and coming ones or the underground artists. But other than that, or artists of yesteryear. But other than that, in terms of music as a whole, from a commercial standpoint, I used to remember I could turn on the TV. I can listen to the radio and hear rappers who had melodies in their raps. Melodies, hook-driven music. I'm not hearing that anymore. I'm hearing quick fix music, and I've heard that for many, many years. It has to be honest. Things have to be said. But maybe the destroy and rebuild of it needs to take place, and maybe people will start getting back to making something of a positive standard because it's diminished. Now, whoever is making music, people may say if they're doing well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But that's where, again, sometimes we also can get into problems because the creativity is being stagnated with certain mentalities like that. You know, you have to balance earning money from this and being creative. And that's the challenge.
Now I have to really search hard to find something that I really like as far as hip hop goes. But I think it's just about the substance. Right now it feels like it's a little more quantity over quality. Made a song last night, I need to put it out tomorrow. What are you going to dedicate yourself to? The art or the money? You know, it's that simple.
Give yourself the time, whether it's 2 months, 3 months, a year, to make something that's going to last forever.
I think the care for lyrics needs to really be a thing where we can, again, as I was alluding to earlier, have lyrics that are relatable, things that people, the general person, can really be, you know, moved by. I remember there's a song, and it's an R&B song, so it's not really about hip hop in this example. But I remember an artist called Alfonso Hunter. I used to hear this song on the radio like crazy back in the day. It was a song called Just the Way Players Play, right? That song, it was one of his major songs. That song had lyrics like this. I've been hustling hard all week and my pockets are fat. I gotta kick it tonight. There's a party going on. I know it's gonna be jumping. I called a VIP to let them know I'm coming. The way it was delivered, the way the beat was hitting, in terms of, again, melody-driven music, something that's relatable, something that gets you in a mood, something that you may think is simple. Yes, but it's the relatability. I'm going to do certain things in this moment. It's moments music in life. So these are some of the aspects that are missing, the understanding of the person. It's more now just, let me just say something about this or that. And I see this a lot in a lot of these rappers, male rappers, female rappers. I'm not hearing enough. I'm hearing a lot of vulgarity, as opposed to some quality that has some moments that people can actually understand and relate to. You know, I'm hearing quick fix music. I'm hearing, okay, it's a vibe, but does it have staying power 10, 15, 20 years from now? That song I referenced was, I believe, 96. Guaranteed that gets played in the clubs. People are going crazy. If you remember it, it evokes an emotion due to the way it's constructed. Melody, bass, beats, lyrics. These are the things that are missing. Take time with the music. You know, we can't just say, oh, yeah, it's going back to the underground. It's all good over there. Yeah, fine. But look at the aspects of why it's going back to the underground, or why only a few artists, a few, are carrying the numbers.
When you're an MC and you spitting the raw, as an MC, you spitting it for your people. Rapper, you spitting it for the corporation. Now, both are good. You're going to have a balance. But some people tend to lean more toward the rap to get the money then the culture, you get the respect. The culture comes first, because with respect comes the cash. With mastery of your skill comes the cash. When people like what you do, that's when the cash comes. Anything you master, you're going to get money for it. That's the issue. People do stuff, but they don't master it. They don't perfect it to the point that nobody else can do it like them. Once you reach that point of mastery, the money's chasing you. You ain't got to chase the money.
And also, it does seem that a lot of artists are getting away, you know, with not spitting as once was. It seems a lot of artists are always mainly focused on how they can hustle this game, how they can try and see if they can maybe get something going and then maybe jump into other avenues, which is fine. Yes, increase those streams of income and opportunity, but it's at the expense of the genre. It's at the expense of it. When certain songs are coming and going, they may get big on TikTok or they may get big online, but they're not really hitting the charts for a long period. You have to question it. It's because we've accepted over the years, over many years, the dumbing down of the genre. You have to be able to be like, I'm the person that's doing this sound and I'm not trying to sound like that person or that person. That's how rap has always been, biting my style, and all. No one wanted to be seen or heard biting styles. Now, people were, but whenever you were doing it, you were called out for it. Whenever you were slacking lyrically, you were called out for it. Now, today, it's like if you call out someone who is slacking lyrically and you can hear when things aren't where they need to be, you're called a hater, you're called this, you're called that. But people used to be called out. Even some of your best rappers who are considered some of the best of yesteryear, some of them were even called out by fellow rappers. But the point is, the influence commercially needs to be at a point where people are getting back to making melodic driven music with some form of identity behind it. Keeping a craft at the highest level, in order for it to stay there, there has to always be innovation. There has to always keep the basics of how to make music, of what generally works, but creating things within that sounds different. Not taking melodies out of it. Not taking moments that make you feel good out of it. Not taking chorus-driven music away from it. I'm hearing all these things less and less. Or you say this ain't good enough, this ain't good enough. You're hating this. Or you're hating this type of person. You're hating female rap if you say something. You're hating this type of style of rap from whoever if you say anything against it. You have to, if the numbers are showing that certain levels of artists aren't commercially viable as they once were. It's quick music that's coming and going, having some staying power online, but it's not sticking. Why? Because we're accepting what we're getting and we're not calling things out to say we need to get back to a certain level.
My process is to find the details in everything. I think details are important. If it's a sweater this person was wearing, what kind was it? How did it feel on that person's skin? That might not even be what the story's about, but it gives the description, it gives you more visuals when you hear somebody rap. Tell me everything about your day. Tell me what's wrong. Why do you see it wrong? Say it straight from your heart. If it's not clear, if it's not, you're not transparent, then come back to it and work on it some more. In an hour, another day. Come back to it till it's precise, just the way you need it to be. Details.
The general sense. Tell me how many people do you believe in the rap game are doing this, having detail in their raps, questioning it, thinking of what they're saying. Where do you hear the intricacy from a commercial rap standpoint? When we could hear Dr. Dre, Chronic 2, singles released from that album, we can still play those singles today in clubs and it knocks. Sonically, most of the songs that are out, that have been out since, sonically, composition wise, you will play those songs and it still has influence. The artist even performed well. Everything needs to change. Even performances. That's a big thing as well as to why the interest is not where it used to be. The lack of depth, the lack of know-how is just quick performances and no kind of control in the crowd. Being an MC, as KRS once said in the earlier video, but then knowing how to make songs commercially. Being an MC, controlling the crowd, charisma, presence. If you want to dance, who do you put on? Now it's just, I bop. Dancing was a thing back in the day. Now I'm bopping. I'm vibing. The vibes have changed in music. There's no clear-cut indication of this is what this music is for. Songs that are commercially known are played in clubs because they're just commercially known. Does it mean that it's a groove that is supposed to make you dance? The answer is no. Now you say dance in the clubs. People laugh at people dancing in the clubs today. So before your very eyes and ears, you kill the genre. You're killing the influence and the effect. Doom and gloom sounding music. Artists with no charisma, no performance, no ability to articulate as well. All of these things have diminished. That has made also the ideology of people who are listeners check out. It's a cumulative thing. If you don't have the appeal as much, look-wise and how you command yourself, then your conversational pieces are poor. Then your music lacks melody and groove and identity. It's just quick fix. Let me see if I can just get a trend going. How do you expect the influence to take place?
First start producing, you can start from sampling, you can start from programming a kick drum, a hi-hat and a snare, and then you start from like, my first beat to getting to the level of like the masters that use sampling and, they sample drums from the 70s and the 60s and, mix it with some sample from the 80s and a little word sample from KRS or something on top of it, or a James Brown scream, and this combination is how people define their textures and who they are.
We also have to delve into the production as well. There has been moments of production over the years that have set the pace for the sound changes that has taken place in rap, and particularly trap has been a major influence when it comes to music making and the sound of it and where artists are going, have gone, to be fair, when it comes to the sound. The sound of trap has been majorly influential. But with that and the heavy 808s and less imposing melodies, it sometimes becomes repetitive in terms of production and identity and taking samples or using unique sounds. It has not grown in a way where you can actually say, you know what? This is what this sound is doing now for other artists on the come up. It's not doing much. And I use that as an example because that was one of the big sort of changes in rap, particularly in the early 2000s with the trap sound, particularly from the Southern influence and the Southern dominance that has taken place since. Where are the producers who are still trying to say, you know what, let's create grooves, melodies, because grooves never die. From the 70s, 80s, 90s, grooves, when it's R&B, when it's funk, when it's the grooves of the G-Funk era. You play those songs today, they still have far more staying power and weight. Why does it evoke so much emotion when you see your artists of yesteryear performing today? Why are artists taking old samples and not sampling it creatively, but they're just taking old samples and plonking it on top of their songs and trying to create songs out of it? Artists are doing that today. They're not being intricate with the sampling though. They're just taking it and just maybe changing a few things. Why are they even taking it is the question. Because of the way it was made, the composition, the groove aspects, understanding melodies. But in rap, it's diminished over the years. The question is why? There was a moment in 96, if you remember, when it comes to the charts, the top 40 or the songs that came out in 96. I know I'm going many, many years ago, but it's to give an example of some of the songs that had staying power and still have staying power till today. The difference in styles, the difference in production, the grooves of these beats. These are things that are missing today as to why rap is broken, and the care for it is not where it needs to be. The care to be able to create unique sounds, but keep melodies at the forefront. The groove, the way you create your bass, the way you create your kicks and snares. All of these things, I'm not seeing that care. Days when you could have on the charts in 96, a Tupac, California Love, with Bone Thugs and Harmony, a totally different song. Crossroads. Then you've got Busta Rhymes, for example, that were on the charts in 96. Woo-ha. Then you've got Fugila from the Fugees, LL Cool J's Lounging. All totally different, but all have its effect in the moments that each song is trying to evoke. It has its moments. Tupac, you know what that's about. Crossroads, you know what that's about. You know what Lounging is about. You know what they're trying to do. I'm not hearing music today that I am understanding what people are trying to do in a general sense for the general sound of rap commercially. It's lost taking things from different eras and sampling in a certain way to give its clarity. It's taking that away. Artists aren't doing that no more. Producers aren't doing that enough commercially. These are the things that kept these artists going. They understood it. The producers, the rappers, they understood how to bring the care for melodies and hooks. And you go back even to the early 2000s, I alluded to that. We knew who the 50 Cents were, the Ja Rules, the Nellies, the Eminems. These were people, again, melody-driven music, melodic-driven music, relatable. People are not here just to keep being fooled by what they're hearing. How do you understand simplicity in terms of what is relatable? And then what you still have to keep that has intricacy to it. How are people understanding these things as an artist? And I don't know if people are doing that. They're not understanding the intricacies of what has to be simple, but what has to have its basis of some form of intricacy as well. The balance. We're not getting that. Artists are losing the ability to understand direction, losing the ability to understand, especially with a lot of producers, commercially understanding what makes sense when it comes to how to put sounds together that has more of an expansive sound that can capture more people, younger audience, older audience. Like I said, those artists I mentioned, older and younger people could get with it. People need individual identity for things to really last. A chart with different sounds. That's how it works. Different grooves, different melodic sounds, and most importantly, relatable lyrics, everything, videos, everything needs to get to a point where, one is using more of their creativity in a more smarter way, particularly as labels a lot of the time are not doing enough to really unearth and build talent. They're just, as we've seen over the years, waiting for an artist to have the numbers and then try and jump on them. But they still need to have development as well. And sometimes a lot of the labels are missing that as well.
I remember I signed Chopper. This nigga Chopper told the label, first release, he's like, nah, we're not putting that out. He's like, no, we're not putting that out. They wanted to drop a record Thursday night. Chopper said, no, we're not dropping it Thursday. We dropping it Friday at 5:26 p.m. The label was like, what? No. 12 a.m. Every song drops. That nigga said, not mine, because I fucking go. He said, not mine, because my fan base gonna get out of school at 3 o'clock. They're gonna do their chores. They're gonna do their homework. And they're gonna turn on YouTube around 5:30, and they need to see me. And I remember the label was like, you need to talk to them, Ray, and tell them that's wrong. Nigga, I was like, I got y'all. I went to Chopper. I said, hey, bro, do what the fuck you want to do. Whatever you was doing got us to give you $8 million. Do not listen to these people.
Don't change.
They do not know better. Because if they knew, we would be doing. We don't know. They're just trying to make you follow industry rules. They came back in the room. Chopper was like, no. Song goes out. It goes number one. Everything works. Nigga, I'll famously say, I learned from NLE Chopper. I got act like I'm the gatekeeper. That little nigga taught me so much being around a 17-year-old whiz kid that understood his audience. I listened to him. The labels don't like to listen, guys, because if they start listening to you, you start realizing, I don't need these niggas.
Sometimes labels, we know what they've done over the years. We know in terms of the money that they've generated, which gives them that kind of influence to be able to keep getting more artists and keep having their way that they believe makes sense in every case. But a lot of the time, you have to have a case-by-case basis when you're dealing with artists. Every artist has to be tailored differently. Similarly, but a lot of the time differently. There has to be moments where you have to understand that this artist A is not the same as B, so you have to have a different perspective and rollout and branding and marketing behind them. And sometimes labels get stuck in their ways. So that affects the output of where music can also land when it comes to this rap. It can affect the positions that rap can get to because you're misguided and sometimes your, insistence on putting an artist only in one way in terms of how they have to release music or, brand themselves. So a lot of artist development or a lack thereof of it is a major issue as well as to why rap is not where it used to be when it comes to the commercial sound, or why I believe it's broken in many instances. You have to get to a point where you're being honest and looking at artists and saying, how does that artist have potential staying power? How do they keep redeveloping every release? Because more often than not, you're going to have to change it up every release because there will be moments where people get bored of certain things. So how are artists being set up today to be able to adapt to that, especially when they're dealing with labels? What are the plans for certain artists? Because you can have one single, because more often than not, we're in a singles game at this moment. You can have one artist that has a single that does well, but okay, what's the next step after the album comes out? And then after that album, if it supposedly does well, what's the next step? So you can have a longer sort of career. How do you have influence to stay on the charts and to really, you know, create sounds that have staying power? You're not, because artists are not being developed accordingly a lot of the time. And that is at the fault of the labels. Not cementing a fan base before sometimes you have certain singles go out, you know? Or if you may have a single that goes out that does well, what is being done behind the scenes to continually try and cement that artist? How are you assessing if that single that done well, or the singles, those numbers are viable for staying power when it comes to a fan base? The rollout, you name it. I'm not seeing that enough. The rollouts. I'm just seeing single coming out in 2 weeks or a week, and you know, a few things online being done to certify it, but I'm not seeing enough of the clear-cut development that gives interest to people who listen to music. I'm just seeing quick album covers or single covers or a release that you didn't even know was coming. I'm not getting that understanding of how to sometimes navigate for certain artists, and that's what affects their chances as well of being on the charts and really dominating. These are some of the things that I've mentioned, you know, that really affect rap. The sound used to be controlled back in the day by all levels of artists. It didn't matter if you sold 1 million or you didn't sell 1 million, or you went gold or you just went under. There was still an influence of all types of sounds, irrespective of the level. Today, I'm not getting that enough as time has gone on. So what's your opinion when it comes to this rap is broken perspective in the commercial sense? Let me know.